Waylon Jennings and the Spontaneity of Performance. Throughout this presentation, you can click on the image within the slide or the link to see the performances I'm discussing. Let's go now to the first slide. Waylon Jennings' live performances were often blistering sets of stripped-down honky-tonk music that reflected both his fast-living lifestyle from the 1960s to the 1980s, and later, after he was clean, helped retain his image as the tough-talking, take-no-shit-from-nobody outlaw. While Jennings tried to maintain his image as a simple working-class guy who happened to make good, he was an astute and sophisticated performer, well aware of his audience and its expectations of him. When comparing live recordings and concert footage to his studio albums and lyric sheets, there is a pattern wherein Jennings regularly cuts off the last verse of a song, sometimes substituting an extra chorus, but just as often heading into a crescendo of him and the Wailers trading licks. A performer often tires of greatest hits material and longs for a different kind of engagement with the audience, and there is evidence that Jennings' editing of the songs was purposeful, because it's consistent in several performances of the same song in a variety of settings over a course of 3 decades. There are several instances of Jennings playing with the arrangements or performances of songs to appear spontaneous, but 3 that show some kind of consistent performance of that spontaneity are Only Daddy That'll Walk the Line, Good-Hearted Woman, and Storms Never Last. The 3 songs are staples of his career, becoming part of his repertoire in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, and being among those he played with great regularity in his concerts. 2 other songs, I'm a Ramblin' Man and Waymore's Blues, are highlighted here as well to show the development of his public persona and Jennings' instinct to subvert the persona with ironic performance and humor. Let's go now to slide 2. The business of country music revolves around the family-friendly image and down-home conservative values. Many of the truly influential artists in country music have struggled with this facet of the Nashville establishment. Jennings had troubles with the Nashville establishment as they first tried to pitch him in the early 1960s as a country folk artist, leaving his guitar playing out of recordings in favor of studio musicians and adding elements such as a string section to his records during the production phase so that Jennings said he hardly recognized his own music. Jennings and studio heads also had trouble trying to give him an image that would be palatable to country audiences. He was addicted to amphetamines and had a reputation for chasing women, not unusual in the rock and roll world, but frowned upon in country music, where Hank Williams Sr.'s drinking problems had gotten him dismissed from the Grand Ole Opry stage. Moving now to slide 3. Stephen Nachmanovich describes the power of spontaneous performance in his book Free Play, Improvisation in Life and Art. In the opening chapter, he describes the act of performance as communication. There's something energizing and challenging about being one-on-one with the audience and creating a piece of work that has both the freshness and the fleeting moment, and when everything is working, the structural tautness and symmetry of a living organism. It can be a remarkable and often moving experience in direct communication. Listening to the banter between Jennings, band members, and the audience during a 1974 performance, one can see this at work. As he introduces Bob Wills is Still the King, Jennings jokes that he wrote the song on an airplane between Dallas and Austin going to El Paso, then starts to explain that Bob Wills is one of the inspiring figures in his own music. This is what gave us the idea to come down here, he says. This is a song about a guy that probably did as much for our kind of music as anybody. In the background, an audience member can be heard yelling, "It was a good idea!" The band then plays the song, which includes some digs at the idea of Nashville as the standard for country music. At this point in his career, Jennings was making the transition from being groomed as a folk country or pop country artist by the studio heads in Nashville and New York to his most lasting incarnation, that of the outlaw. An image that was another creation, yes, but one in which he had a strong hand. Jennings and several other Texas and California musicians were in the midst of reviving older styles of country, such as western swing and honky-tonk, as well as bringing in influences from jazz, blues, rock, and folk music. The blend of sounds would prove to be profitable and one of the catalysts for turning country into a genre with crossover appeal that drew audiences from all over the world. Let's go now to slide 4. The Ivy J. Bryant song, Only Daddy That'll Walk the Line, appeared on Jennings' 1968 album, Only the Greatest. The record was produced by Chet Atkins, and the studio version features a hard-driving rhythm section, and Wayne Moss's guitar is prominent in the mix. On a 1969 Johnny Cash show performance, Jennings plays the song after some playful banter with Cash, where they reminisce about sharing an apartment together early in Jennings' career. He changes the line, "Everybody knows you've been stepping on my toes," to "Every monkey knows," and winks as he sings the substituted phrase. When the band gets to the final chorus, the bass player starts to sing the word "only" before the rest of the group, drawing laughter from the crowd. The bass player grins and hangs his head while Jennings smiles and carries on with the song. In a performance of the song recorded 4 years later in Austin, Texas, the band does the same thing, with the backing vocalist making the same mistake with his timing. In both instances, Jennings smiles or laughs good-naturedly but keeps the tempo steady, as does the band, showing by example what a performer is supposed to do when a mistake is made. Making the staged mistake could be read as a way to maintain rapport with the audience, sending out the message that the performer has imperfections just as the audience members do, and enhancing the idea that they are regular folks, a crucial part of the business of country music. Let's go now to slide 5. One song that helped construct Jennings' image as a sex symbol and ladies' man is "I'm a Ramblin' Man," which originally appeared on the 1974 album The Ramblin' Man. The studio version of "I'm a Ramblin' Man" has a thumping pop-flavored bass which dominates the mix, and Jennings delivers the vocals in a straightforward manner, his persona in the song coming across as the stereotypical ladies' man. Live, Jennings sometimes puts the emphasis on his guitar playing and at other times sings with an air of parody. On a televised appearance on the Cowboy Jack Clement show in 1973, Jennings flubs his vocals and grins at his own mistake, as he repeats a line about California. Rather than rescuing the vocals, he opts to put the emphasis on the music and on himself as a guitarist. Jennings does not finish the verse, but turns to the band and raises his hand to direct them into upping the tempo. He then takes a solo where his chicken-picking technique is highlighted. The effects on his guitar give the song a much harder sound than the studio version, and point to the evolution of Jennings as he was starting to negotiate more control over his own records. On the 1974 album Waylon Live, the version of "I'm a Ramblin' Man" is played with a more lean feel than on the album, and Jennings chuckles a little as he sings the chorus. While his song choices build the image of Jennings as a leather-clad Don Juan of country music, his delivery often skewers that image by undermining it with winks and nods to the audience. Jennings refuses to take any constructed image of himself seriously, whether it's been studio-directed or his own choice. Let's go now to slide 6. Jennings later claimed that in Waymore's Blues he was trying to say what he thought a good old boy would want to get away with. The first part of the song pays homage to Jimmie Rodgers, a country blues artist who was among Jennings' early heroes. On a performance on the Cowboy Jack Clement show, Jennings performs an acoustic version of the song while his wife, musician and songwriter Jessie Coulter, listens. Jennings looks embarrassed and laughs as he sings. And an aside, after a particularly graphic line, he says, "Poetic license," and Coulter retorts with, "You're going to need a lot of poetic license for that one." At the end of the song, the two have an exchange about songwriting that reveals the difficulties of two artists in a marriage when the personal becomes public.